Okay, everybody. Holy Spirit, let's get excited. This is part 2 of this little series I'm doing where I'm reading this guy, David Rubin, his book. I wish I was friends with Dave Rubin because I would have mad good nicknames for him. You know, I'd be like, what up, Rubik's Cube? What up, Rube? What up, Rick Rubin? What are you doing? Coming up with beats for Jay-Z? You helping the Beastie Boys out? Rick Rubin? It would be endless fun on both of our parts. We would both like it equally, and he would enjoy it just as much as I do. So yeah, anyway, the last half, the previous episode, we looked at section 1 and 2 of this book. The book is called, what is it called again? Don't Burn This Book by Dave Rubin. And the first 2 chapters, if you watch that video that I did, I'm just kind of, the whole time I was thinking, yeah, this kind of seems like a ghostwriter wrote it, or maybe some kind of AI bot wrote it based on, you know, right-wing YouTube videos or something. Now, these next 2 chapters, 3 and 4, I'm totally convinced that this was ghostwritten by somebody. Somebody was just showered with some cash. Here's some talking points. Turn this into a book. And there's a lot of crazy stuff in the first 2 chapters. I'm not gonna lie, a lot of crazy stuff. I wanted to be fair about this book and not just ripping this guy and making fun of him and saying, ha ha ha, Dave Rubin's so dumb, like a lot of people do online. I was not taking that approach. I was like, I'm gonna look at this. I'm gonna give this a fair, open-minded look, okay? And I have to admit, there's a lot of crazy stuff, but the crazy stuff is really ramped up in chapter 3 and 4, as we're gonna see. And this book exists in a different plane, a different sort of exists. It's a different existence. It's like Existenz, that Cronenberg movie. It's existing in some kind of a video game where this world is just left behind. So let's just get into it. Enough of my preamble. Let's get into it. Chapter 3 of the Dave Rubin book. What's it called? Live hard or die trying. Get rich or die trying. This chapter is called Think Freely or Die. Chapter 3. Here's the first sentence, and this struck my old ear. This struck my ear kind of weird. So let's read this. Free thinking is tricky. There isn't a roadmap that delivers you to the site of a set destination. There isn't a roadmap that delivers you to the site of a set destination. Another way to say this is there isn't a roadmap that delivers you to a set destination. And you might think I'm being kind of annoying or like nitpicky about this, but that kind of thing is like a giveaway. As someone who's written papers that I didn't want to write for money, this is a dead giveaway of somebody who was paid to write something and they're trying to kind of pad it out. It's a combination of trying to pad it out, get more length in there so it looks like you did more work, and just kind of not really paying attention. Like having something going on in the background. Maybe you're listening to, Hall & Oates or something, or you're listening to the My Favorite Murderer podcast or something like that. You just got something going on in the background, so you're going to write things that kind of ramble and don't make sense. Like, there isn't a roadmap that delivers you to the site of a set destination. Okay, so that was to me a giveaway. But it goes on, chapter 3, also known, I call this chapter Get Rich or Die Trying, but I don't think that's the actual name. Okay, so in this one he's talking about, he's got like Dave Rubin, from what I understand, as he explains in this section, he's got a political philosophy called liberalism, and he describes it a little bit here. The formal definition of the term is a quote, political philosophy and ideology belonging to liberalism, in which primary emphasis is placed on securing the freedom of the individual by limiting the power of the government. This is classical liberalism. Said more simply, it's live and let live. Now, this is honestly, this is a fascinating book. This is a fascinating book if you're interested in this stuff, if you're interested in politics and history and stuff, because remember that phrase, the freedom of the individual by limiting the power of the government. Put a pin in that. Live and let live, he says. Put a pin in that, because it's going to come up later in a way that you will not believe. It's going to blow you away. And it's amazing. It's amazing. So let's keep going here. So he's talking about, so he has this political philosophy called classical liberalism, and he's going to give us in this chapter, live free or die trying, get rich or die trying. He's going to show us some issues and what the stances would be for somebody with this alleged political philosophy, okay? The first one is drugs. He talks about how he's done drugs before. Pretty cool. I would think that Dave Rubin is cool. Remember when I was talking about how I would call him Rubik's Cube and Rick Rubin and all that stuff? That would be cool. Like, I could see myself being bros with Dave Rubin if he would just kind of abandon all this crazy stuff. So he's done drugs, had a good time, whatever. But then he goes into this. Besides, we already have two declassified drugs that are far more dangerous, alcohol and nicotine. Okay, he's talking about marijuana here. I agree. Alcohol and nicotine, you could definitely make a case, especially in the case of alcohol, that it's worse. So, agreed. Dave Rubin agreed, but then he keeps going. The catch is that this libertarian-inspired view falls apart when it starts to include Schedule 1 substances. Wait a second, Schedule 1? That sounds like government talk. Substances such as crack and heroin, which are obviously very cool. Now, he says, very different beasts. These substances are highly addictive and frequently fatal and can inspire a whole host of criminal activity along the way, which is where the lightest possible touch of government comes into play. Interesting. So now the live and let live philosophy comes into a little bit of conflict with this idea that maybe, we live in a kind of complex network where you kind of have to look at things with a little more nuance, maybe. Interesting. So he's probably going to take this in I would say a very kind of deep direction. He's going to take this in a deep direction, I think. In these instances, I'm reluctantly okay for the state to make a judgment call, because freedom can't be a free-for-all. Sure, we want to give people maximum liberties, but we also don't want a Breaking Bad episode happening next door. Speak for yourself. Speak for yourself. That show got huge ratings. I would love that next door. Got a spin-off too, Dave. Come on, you're a show business guy. Why wouldn't you want that next door? With half of the local population whacked out on meth, that's not the key to a healthy, functioning society. Very interesting. Very interesting. So what he's saying here is that, the most important thing is people being free to do what they want. People need to be free to do what they want, okay? But there can be problems. There can be problems with that. Okay, there can be problems with that. People could die. People could get sick, Another example of this would be, something like tens of thousands of people dying because, I don't know, like they don't have health insurance or something like that, I'm just saying, Dave, we're getting into more detailed territory here, where I feel like if a ghostwriter didn't write this book, or if somebody if somebody who actually cared about this stuff wrote that book, they would be like, ooh, this is going to be tough to make this case. I know the hardcore libertarians will find this compromise a hard pill to swallow, pun intended, but we can go to where the evidence takes us. As we've repeated, this might be my favorite part of the whole book. As we've repeatedly seen, human beings have a track record of succumbing to indulgence. Human beings do have a track record of succumbing to indulgence. They love indulgence. People love things that are pleasurable. It's very weird. Succumbing to indulgence. That's another red flag that somebody wrote this. That somebody in India wrote this for $35 to $45, this entire book. Succumbing to indulgence. And then going off the rails into oblivion. Okay, here it is. Ready for this? Just look at the likes of Whitney Houston, Amy Winehouse, Michael Jackson, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Heath Ledger, and Prince. In other words, if you want to be a hugely successful artist, become a drug addict, because these are all people that we admire. These are all people that we admire to a ridiculous degree. So I guess that's what he's saying. Want to be good? Want to be a great artist? Get addicted to drugs, which I totally agree with. Well, we can't stop people from obtaining illegal drugs. Well, okay. So he goes on and on, just kind of backing away from his original claim, which was that we got to maximize individual liberties, except for a lot of them. Here's the next issue that he goes into. Remember, this whole chapter is a series of issues that he's giving you his kind of take on as someone with this political philosophy called classical liberal. Gay marriage is the next one. Okay, so I had to actually step away and make sure that I read this correctly. And I came back and I was like, yeah, we're doing this. We're doing this. We're going here. So he's talking about, okay, I'll just set this up. This is something that relates back to the First Amendment, which clearly sets out the importance of freedom of religion and assembly for everyone, including those you disagree with. This is what it means to be equal. No special treatment for anyone. Okay. Seems semi-reasonable so far. I think I agree with this. I don't know where you're going, but I think I agree with this. Think of it this way, he says. I wouldn't force a Jewish painter to take the commissions of Hitler imagery from a Nazi sympathizer. I wouldn't force a Jewish painter to take commissions of Hitler imagery from a Nazi sympathizer. And I bet you wouldn't either. You don't know me, Dave. That's exactly the type of thing that I do and enjoy. That's the kind of, I just like to create interesting situations and just see where it goes. I'll throw a little get together, 5 or 6 people, and there'll be some Jews and some Nazis. I'll be like, what's going to happen? And I have hidden cameras and stuff. Nor would I make it mandatory for a historically black church to hold an event for white supremacists. This isn't rocket science, people. Okay, so where are we going next? Remember, this is the gay marriage section, so where are we going next? I also wouldn't take legal action against a Christian baker if the baker politely refused to create, which even that part isn't true. If you read the whole story about that cake situation, that dumb cake story, the polite part isn't even true. He's trying to pad this thing. Whoever wrote this is trying to pad this thing as much as possible, trying to push to this side, this viewpoint as much as possible, and they can't even get that right. Refused to create my rainbow-themed wedding cake. Let's read this part again. I also wouldn't take legal action against a Christian baker if the baker politely refused to, by shouting a Bible verse at them, to create my rainbow-themed wedding cake. Okay, now we get into the comedy side of Dave Rubin, which he kind of, this is an aside, okay? But he kind of brushes up against an interesting bit that he actually does pretty well, which is I'm covering a really quote-unquote important topic. I'm covering a hot button issue. I'm covering a real hot button Bill Maher style issue. But then I slip in a mundane fact from my life to kind of show you like everything's goofy. Like just the biggest issue that people argue about and courts have hearings and cases about. But then I'll bust into something just totally unrelated and mundane. So here, we'll see this format that he does, which I actually think has potential, comedy potential. I also wouldn't take legal action against a Christian baker if the baker politely refused to create my rainbow-themed wedding cake. For the record, we had a simple lemon and rosemary cake at the wedding. So, comedy-wise, not a bad format. You just break into a really stupid, mundane thing, and you're like... It's sort of like almost like a Chevy Chase style, like, I'm just a narcissistic dingus at my heart. You know, the way he's like just always thinking about the details of his own little kind of dumb life, you know? I like it. It could be good. Okay, so... This really, like, I don't want to do one of these videos where it's just like, can you believe what he said? Can you believe what he just said? But I can't figure out another way that he could mean this besides he thinks that a Nazi sympathizer, that there's some kind of equivalency to a Nazi sympathizer coming into a painter's workshop or something with pictures of Hitler and saying, hey, can you please paint this guy for me? A Jewish painter, hey, can you please paint this guy who tried to exterminate your entire race? Can you please paint him for me? That's forcing him to do that is equivalent to like a civil rights thing with a gay couple asking for a cake where there's like two female-looking like statuettes on top of the cake. That's like the only way I can read this. Like there's no other way. He's like, look. That's the other thing. The other thing about this is that you could totally apply this to if a guy came in and he's like, hey, I have this cake for my black wedding, where I'm a black guy and I'm marrying a black lady, and I want that on the cake. I mean, he probably wouldn't put black guy on the cake, but it would be the names of two people who are black who are getting married. You could, using the same kind of stuff that he's talking about here, you could apply the exact same rule that he's saying, which is that you can't force people to do things that they don't like. Unfortunately, as we witnessed with the legal case against Melissa and Aaron Klein, blah, 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 those are the cake people, he said, oh, here's the weird, this is honestly, this one threw me too. And this is another, to me, a hint. This can't be, oh boy, man. Oh, geez. Like, this can't be, somebody could not have written this in any kind of way where they were kind of looking things up and paying attention. The crucial distinction, this is a crucial distinction. Oh, wait, hold on. Unfortunately, as we witnessed in the legal case against Melissa and Aaron Klein, the now infamous wedding cake bakers, or non-bakers as it were, progressives have decided that if you don't run your business the way they want you to, for example, if you are having a black wedding and you want two black names on it, the names of two black people on a cake, you can't force people to do that. They will take legal action against you. Without relitigating the whole affair, okay, definitely not going to relitigate the whole affair. It's important to note that the Kleins didn't refuse service to the gay couple. They just refused a custom order of a cake. They didn't refuse service to the gay couple. They just refused a custom order of a cake. So the custom order of the cake was two brides, right? They didn't want to make a cake with 2 brides on it. So they're refusing service to people based on their sexual orientation. And Dave Rubin's like, no, they just didn't want to make a certain kind of cake. This is a crucial distinction because refusing service based on immutable characteristics might have been a violation of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which ended segregation and employment discrimination on the basis of Although sexuality is not specifically mentioned here, there could have been a legal case to be had. I mean, I read about this case, and these people were fined $130,000. They had to appeal, and I think eventually the Supreme Court sent it back. They're going to rehear the case, I think. But he's saying they might have had a case. Well, they won the case in that lower court. They were fined. The cake place was fined $130,000. They might have had a case. You might have had a case. Yeah, we won $130,000. Good luck. Good luck with your quote-unquote case. And then Dave Rubin walks away. Rubik's Cube walks away. This overreaction is precisely the sort of irrational behavior we've been witnessing from the overzealous left in recent years. Its adherents want any form of dissent to be classified as criminal act and punishable by law. Again, just any form of dissent. Like, for example, if my cake store doesn't like black people and we don't want to put black people's names on the cake, that's our right. That's our right, okay? It's the cake place would be called White Names Only Cake. White weddings only cake. But instead, it doesn't mean like white wedding, like everybody's wearing white. It's like white people. This overreaction is, not that part. In a liberal society, people have the right to hold different beliefs than yours. That right is what we must protect above all else. Okay. So that was an interesting one. Next, we go into the next issue. Next issue. Next issue. Immigration. Here's how it starts. I wouldn't dream of getting off a flight into another country, swaggering up to the... What the fuck, Dave, dude? I do want to be friends with Dave now. Because I want to know what this dude seems like fun, honestly. I wouldn't dream of getting off a flight into another country, swaggering up to the immigration office, just pimp walking, just pimp stepping up to the immigration officer and demanding permanent residency. This would make me an entitled buffoon who fulfills all the cliche of the brash, vulgar American. Here we go. It'd also be hugely unfair to dump myself. It'd also be unfair to dump myself on the hardworking citizens of a foreign land. To dump myself. Dave Rubin sees immigration as one dumping oneself on the hardworking citizens of a foreign land. I mean, just to whatever, this doesn't even need to be said, but here's a statistic that might help. Immigrants pay more than $90 billion in taxes every year and receive only $5 billion in welfare. Without their contributions to the public treasury, the economy would suffer enormous losses. I'll put a link to that. If I can remember to put a link, which I probably can't, but you can look it up. That's stats everywhere. Not that we need to say that, but dumping oneself, these people dumping them, these human beings dumping themselves. Wait, I thought you were like an individual guy where every person is a unique individual. Yeah, but these people are just dumping them. These people are trash, dumping themselves. It's like a trash can grows arms and then picks itself up and dumps itself on a country. Holy moly. Who've spent decades building their infrastructure and refining their culture through blood, sweat, tears, and taxation, to which I've contributed absolutely nothing. Ooh boy. Yo, we're getting into rough waters here. Ay. And it pretty much goes on. The immigration section is pretty much summarizes it. So let's go. You're just dumping yourself. You're trash dumping yourself in a country, and it's gross. Abortion is the next one. Okay, this is kind of interesting. Dave Rubin is gonna adopt a kid with his husband. He's a gay dude, and he's got a husband, and they're looking to adopt. And he's talking about the different ways you could do that. He might get his sister to carry the baby. They might have an anonymous egg donor, yada yada, blah blah blah, blah 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 blah. But this, he kind of explains, showed him the unique beauty of a child and where life begins and all this stuff. Before this process started, I'd always been solidly pro-choice. Though in the last 2 years or so, I've begun to describe myself as begrudgingly pro-choice. Begrudgingly pro-choice. That's sort of a weird being begrudging about a choice when you're like, human freedom is the most important thing, individual freedom, but I'm kind of begrudgingly letting people choose stuff. After learning more about the biology of gestation and the process of abortion, and seeing the left fetishize it in a way that I'm not comfortable with. And then he gives these examples. There are countless videos on YouTube of women celebrating their terminations, while organizations such as Shout Your Abortion encourages Twitter users to do the same with carefree abandon. Of course, using colorful, eye-catching images. What I love about this is that this is incredibly common. I have known women who have been close friends with who have gotten abortions. And every story I hear, they go to get an abortion, right? And they run out and they're like, this is a joke, and I'm going to do a joke video on TikTok about it now. Like, that's the more, like, what he's describing, this shout your abortion thing. This is the most common way that people do this. Like, he's not describing an exception. This is the rule. People are always... Like, when you go to, like, an abortion clinic or Planned Parenthood or whatever to terminate a pregnancy, it's just like a goofy, wacky thing that people are joking about most of the time. It's a very silly... it's like the Adam Sandler movies. Like, they have that kind of vibe of just, like, goofing around. You know what I mean? So he is describing something in what I would call perfectly good faith here. Another woman proudly declared, I wasn't ready to start over again. People can call it selfish or sinful, but at the end of the day, they're not the one tending to my kids. Again, a guy who's all for personal, people should do whatever they want, live and let live. Kind of weird he's got a problem with this. Might have something to do, I wonder if it has anything to do with, like, funding sources for this stuff. Probably not. Free speech. Free speech is the next one. My stance on this isn't because I enjoy listening to anti-Semite propaganda or conspiracy. It always comes back to the Nazis with fucking Dave Rubin, or conspiracy theories spewed by true racists, but because I'm a free speech absolutist. This is funny because there's a couple chapters back, one of the first chapters, he was whining and moaning about some YouTuber talking about some guy he hated on Fox News, and he was like, this is ridiculous. Why is he talking about this guy on Fox News in such a mean way? Yet he's a free speech absolutist. So there you go, there's that. Gun control, literally nothing interesting or funny to say about gun control. It's like exactly what you would expect. Then we get to a pretty interesting one, trans issues. Oh boy, oh yeah, this one's good. I'm going to send Dave Rubin an email because I do want to be bros with him. When I was a boy, I wanted to be a Decepticon named Soundwave. Pretty tight Decepticon. I wonder where he's going with this. When I was a boy, I wanted to be a Decepticon named Soundwave, and the title of this thing is called Trans Issues. I mean, I'm already sold on whatever. I'm already sold on whatever he's going to say next, just with this setup. Alas, medical science in the 1980s wasn't advanced enough to swap my body for that of a futuristic robot that turned itself into a cassette player. That is tight. That is tight. This is exactly, he's making an exact parallel to trans people. This devastated the 6-year-old me. This kind of endears me to Dave Rubin, that he's just like, I picture this little kid, this little gay kid, 6-year-old living in, like, I don't know, the Midwest somewhere in the 1980s, and he's just like, when will medical science reach the point when I can become a Decepticon? He's just obsessing about it. He's looking in the mirror. He's just got like he's got this like robot dysphoria. Like he just can't stop. Like he looks at his dick and he looks at his like his butthole and his body, and he's just like, this is non-robotic. None of this is a robot, and none of this is ever going to transform into anything. And he's just super, super high-level dysphoria. He's just really obsessing about it all the time, and it's just really bad. This devastated the 6-year-old me for at least 48 hours, maybe even a bit longer. Robot dysphoria, by the way. Let's remember that. But by the time I became an adult, I was seriously happy that I wasn't given the option at all. Dave Rubin was not given the option to become a robot. He's like, shit. Unbelievable. Gotta live in this town as a human. First, I was way too young to make such a big decision. Ooh, I wonder where this is going. Second, which public... Dave, you're not gonna do that. You're not gonna do this to me, Dave. You're not gonna do me like that, Dave. Dave, I'm gonna look... Oh, Dave. Second, which public bathroom does a transformer even use these days? If I was taking a dump, okay? Will you listen to me? If I was taking a dump in a public bathroom and Bumblebee, you know what I mean, walked in, I would be like, you know what? Taking this dump is not the most important thing right now. There's a transformer in here. And nice to meet you, Bumblebee. Can I get a picture with you? Can I post on my social media about this? It's a little bit of an aside, but you get what I'm saying. So, okay, should I put in the serious bit about this, that like that, you know, if a young kid goes on like hormone blockers or something, I think everybody knows this now. It's not just some willy-nilly thing. It's like the kid has to go see like a psychologist, and then they have to go to a series of doctors, and then they have to confirm that this is the right thing to do, and they have to observe the kid's behavior, and blah blah blah. It's like a long process where it's determined by professionals that whatever they do, hormone blockers or whatever it is the next best medical step. But I feel like I'm debunking some like something that's kind of like everybody kind of knows already. That's another thing about this book, why I think it might be ghostwritten, because it's all like 5-year-old material, you know? You know what I mean? It's like if Dave Chappelle got up on stage and he's like, Rick James, hey, let's do all the Rick James bit. And people are like, boo, you suck, come up with new stuff. This is ridiculous. Hey, let me just do my the R. Kelly pee on you bit again. People are like, that's 5 years old. I paid $100 for the ticket to this stupid show. They're throwing stuff at Dave Chappelle. Yeah, this is all like 5 or 6-year-old material. Okay, so that's the trans thing. I mean, it's like absolute. All this stuff is like, it's exactly what you expect, only just worse. Just kind of like not as crafty or slick, which is what I thought it was going to be. Like, I thought it was going to be more like, let's take these ideas these kind of these old ideas that everybody's kind of already moved past, and let's put a new shine on them, put a twist on them that makes them more difficult to talk about or something, or to rebut. Oh, here's another one about economics. I just thought this was a funny little quote. So he worked as an intern, actually, on The Daily Show. 20 years later, the lessons from this internship remain one of the main reasons why I won't hire unpaid interns for his show, that's cool. He doesn't hire unpaid interns. Cool. Yeah, pay these fools. Most of these people got to pay for stuff. They got to pay for shit. They live somewhere. They eat food, and all that stuff costs money. So yeah, maybe pay them if they're doing work for you. Despite getting generous offers from people all over the country. Ooh, humble brag. He's like, ooh, everybody wants to work for me for free. Ooh, Dave, okay, I see you. Quite frankly, I just don't think it's fair to recruit staff at zero cost when you can afford to pay them a semi-decent salary, even if it's just for a few weeks. Okay. So far, we're okay. We can find a little common ground here. Then, does this mean I support a federally enforced minimum wage of $15 an hour? Absolutely not. When it comes to economic policy, the state should mind its own business and allow people to manage their finances with maximum control. Interesting that this is probably the kind of people that fund these like right-wing YouTube channels are usually like some oil heir or somebody who it usually has something to do with like fracking and oil and stuff. And it's weird that the people who kind of pay these people, like Dave Rubin and Ben Shapiro and all these guys, their interests kind of align of not wanting to pay taxes or pay minimum wages and all this stuff. Very, very interesting. Most people don't agree with that. Most people think that you should, if somebody's going to work for you and spend the majority of their day doing stuff, they should be able to live somewhere, have a home, be able to shelter themselves from the elements. The economics part is obviously deep and great. Okay, so that's pretty much it. What else does he talk about here? Yeah, it's economics. What's the next one? Foreign policy. Really nothing worth even talking about or joking about in that section. If you really want to read it, go for it. Go ahead. Have a good time. Section 4. It never ends. It never ends with this. Section 4, don't worry, you're not a Nazi. Don't worry, so this was young Dave Rubin. When he didn't have robot dysphoria, when he wasn't just indulging in his robot dysphoria, he was looking in his mirror, 6-year-old Dave Rubin. He's like, you're not a Nazi. You're not a Nazi. Am I a Nazi? No. But their boots, their outfits though were no. But Jews, very weird. Jews are very no. You're not. Dave, you're not. Come on, we're gonna be a robot one day. One day they're gonna make us a robot, Dave, a Nazi robot. No. So let me say this one more time for the record: you are not a Nazi. Let's look at the evidence. Exhibit A. I'm guessing you're no fan of socialism. Dave, what the fuck? I'm guessing you're no fan of socialism, which was a founding principle of the Nazi movement. This is what the Nazis are known for, actually. Wanting to have universal health care, worker co-ops, what else is like modern socialist crap? Usually no war, like less foreign wars. That's a tough one for the Nazis. Free college? The Nazis were all about free college, right? But there was something else that they were really into too. I can't remember. I'm a history dum-dum, but I recall something that they're more known for. You know what I mean? But he's saying that they were socialists, and if they said they were socialists, they probably were, because from what I understand, Nazis are pretty truthful, like in general. Oh, wait a second. Nazi is an acronym for the National Socialist German Workers' Party. Oh, shit. Damn, that really changes the game here. That really changes the game. What would be a funny thing to compare this to? Let me see if my slow brain can think of a joke. So this is like the monkeys, that band the Monkeys were actual monkeys, I guess, would be like the joke here. Something like that. You fill in the joke. I don't have time for this crap. These days, Nazism gets associated with conservatism. What? Oh man, this These days, Nazism gets associated with conservatism at the drop of a hat, but historically it stems from the left. Adolf Hitler, an art-loving vegetarian who seized power by wooing voters away from Germany's Social Democrat and Communist parties. Yeah, this definitely proves that Hitler was kind of a leftist. He didn't eat meat, and he loved art. Oh, and also in at one point during all this Nazi talk, he works in a hashtag. Though if you do burn this book, please take a picture of it and use hashtag don't burn this book on Instagram. You gotta kind of hand it to him. It's a good little publicity gag. Dave, I hope somebody does that for you. I really do. Okay. He also goes into, I think Dave Rubin is Jewish. He goes into his ancestry. My uncle's father, Joseph Berger, suffered a horrendous fate after real Nazis invaded his native Poland. Okay, so they were involved in the Holocaust. Along with his wife and their 2 daughters, they were rounded up and forced to relocate to a squalid ghetto with 300,000 other Jews, a space roughly 10 blocks wide with a crude perimeter fence. Dave had ancestors who were Jews who were rounded up during the Holocaust. I think some of them were killed too. I mean, there were parts of this book that I just had to skip over because it was just too much. Yeah. Okay. So his grandfather or great grandfather, my uncle's father. Okay. So his family was killed. I would love to see, what's his name, Joseph Berger, talk to Dave Rubin and see what he would have to say about this book. Hey Joseph Berger, you know some of the stuff that's been going on lately that a lot of these YouTube people are kind of falling on the side of. What do you think about that? What do you think? Does this raise any alarm bells? Should we maybe kind of stay away from stuff that it comes anywhere close to this kind of thinking? I wonder what he would think about that. So there it is. Chapter 3 and 4 of Don't Burn This Book. I do think that what I'm doing now has become a sort of Holly Herndon performance art piece where I'm reading the work of an AI as some sort of joke, and I'm totally fine with that, and I love it. And the next section, how many more chapters? Oh my god, this is actually a pretty long book. Might have to cut this bit a little bit short. But yeah, there you go. Some good ideas, some ideas that you should adopt. And if you did not like this video, please hashtag I don't like RM Brown video. Print out a screenshot of it and burn it and hashtag it on Twitter and Facebook and Steam. All right, so I'll see you guys. Oh, subscribe to I'm doing a podcast version of this too. Trying to figure that out. And there's lots of goofing around and experimental stuff on the podcast. So subscribe to it in some way if I set up Libsyn correctly, which I'm not sure if I did.